Alright, this is Andrew with Jodo Home Inspections. We're doing a sewer scope today here in Salt Lake. Today is July 10th, 2025. And we have the camera pushed out 91 feet to the city connection. And we're at 649 South Iverson Street. Now we're going to pull it back and record it and see what we find. So this first connection point is called the nose on. This is where it goes from your lateral line into the main city line. Looks like a decent connection there. Looks like a little bit of an offset on the right hand side of the pipe. Little bit of a lip. It is on the side, which is less concerning, but when you have a lip like that, waste could get stuck, and if enough waste gets stuck there, it could create a blockage. Looks like cast iron. Pretty common for the age. This is probably original. The issue with cast iron is that it gets really rough and rusty, which is how it looks today. And then waste can get stuck, and if enough waste gets stuck, it can create a blockage where it then backs up towards the house. It also thins out over time and it flakes, and so eventually cast iron will need to be replaced. A little bit of standing water through there. Not enough that it covers my camera head. That could be a little bit of a flat spot or a belly. It also could be that you have so much rust and buildup that it's causing it to hold some standing water. A little more here. Quite a bit of buildup there. I would recommend getting this line cleaned. You could have it coated. It's P-I-C-O-T-E. And that's where they clean it with a chain. And that would make it a lot smoother, and then you can evaluate it again and see how it looks at that point. You might find that once it's been cleaned, it doesn't hold any water. There's always a risk involved when you clean old cast iron like this, because you could, if you're hydrojetting it, you can blow through the line, or if it's too thin, you can collapse it. Hopefully not, but there always is some sort of risk involved. Going through some standing water here. That's probably the most standing water that I've seen in this line. 34 feet out, and it looks like, I'm going to push that back out a little bit. It looks like we're tying in maybe to a neighboring line. I doubt that's your city connection. I think that's probably tying in. I'm going to run some water. It's possible that's where the kitchen sink feeds in. There it is. So it doesn't look like that's coming from the kitchen sink. I can see where the bathroom is tied in, and so I don't think it's bathroom either. What I'm wondering is if that line is tied in with a neighboring line, and if that's the case, that prevents you from getting insurance with HomeServe. HomeServe's the more common sewer line protection in the area, and I would definitely recommend it here if you can get it. They would help offset the cost if you have a bigger expense where it fails, or if it needs to be cleaned and if it backs up. They can help cover that, but they don't cover shared lines. And so I might find out from the city. They usually have a map of your sewer, and you would be able to see whether it's shared with a neighbor or not. In either case, it's cast iron, and so it'll eventually need to be replaced. For now, I'd recommend cleaning it and then looking at it again. Not only is it cast iron, out in the yard. It's also cast iron through your crawl space as well. Not a very accessible crawl space. Maybe just deep enough that you could work on it if needed, but I think this might be a good candidate for a liner. So a liner saves a little bit of money because you don't have to dig up the pipe. You just blow a new line through the old one. It only works if you have proper grade, and so you'd have to clean it first and see if it's still holding water. And if it's not, that's great because you could blow a liner in. That saves a little bit of expense. It also saves the yard because you don't have to dig it up. No roots though, which is good. No huge offsets, a couple small ones, but nothing too bad. Little bit of ABS, and then right here at the end, there is a little bit of a flat spot. And so I noticed that when I took the cap off, I had to put a little bucket under it to catch some water. Anybody that works on it in the future would probably have the same issue. Would have been best to have just a little bit more slope right there so that water is not coming out when you access the line. But you do have a nice accessible clean out in the basement, which is helpful. So just to recap, you do have cast iron going all the way out. I would recommend getting it cleaned now. I'd recommend having it put coated, and then I would get the insurance on the line. But again, we don't know if this is tying in with a neighboring line, and so I'd reach out to the city and get the map of it. And that would be insightful, knowing whether it's tied in with a neighboring line or whether that might just be a different part of your house tied in that far out. I'm going to end this recording now.